So somebody recently asked me a question about how do I deal with somebody when they really frustrate me? And specifically in a relationship, like a guy-girl relationship. And it got me thinking more about the expectations that we have of people, because when we're disappointed in the actions of other people, really what the formula for disappointment is when reality does not meet expectations. And so we could focus, if we're frustrated with other people, and this is all relationships. This could be, I'll focus on this video for the inner circle, people that are really close to you. Maybe they're brothers or sisters, your kids, your sweetheart, your boss, your right-hand people at your job. And what happens is that we're regularly disappointed by people because the reality of what's going on doesn't meet the expectations that we had for them. And one of the biggest problems that we make that we focus on as individuals, as humans, is we focus on trying to change the other person or change the reality that we're experiencing through other people, versus altering our expectations that we may have of their behavior or what we perceive to be the way that they should be treating us or behaving around us. And I want to give you a little bit of insight here so that you could be disappointed less and have more predictability in your life and less surprises by the behavior of other people. First and foremost, as a Christian, I love people. I absolutely love people. But it's so easy not to like people. And so generally speaking, if you say, do you like people? Oh, that's a loaded question, and I couldn't tell you that I exactly like a lot of the experiences that I have. However, I love people through my faith, but I've also learned to love people through managing my expectations. And so earlier in my life, I focused a lot about changing my realities. And instead, I started changing my expectations that I would have about certain things. Now, there are deal breakers, and we'll get to a couple of those in a moment. But this isn't a lesson on deal breakers with somebody else. It's more about managing expectations so that you could keep yourself in a healthy mind, body, and spirit. I was explaining to this individual that as it pertains to, say, guys and girls, right? They're made differently, all right? Whether you believe that or not, it's true. They're made differently. When I was growing up, there were a couple books that would be referenced, like Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And it really is just trying to dive into the psychology and the physical makeup and the chemistry and that how different we really are as in a species. We're different. We operate differently. We think differently. There's also a book that said men are like waffles and women are like spaghetti. And so it's like stereotypically speaking that men will think in quadrants and think of drawers, that will put certain things in drawers and then will open up certain drawers and deal with them and then close that drawer. Whereas women may think in terms of spaghetti where it all comes together and it all flows together. Now, it's not 100% of women and it's not 100% of men. But generally speaking, this is a pretty good tip. This is a pretty good advice. And so what I explained to the individual was this, that many times in my life, whether it was a coworker or whether it was my family member or a relationship, a past relationship, that I would focus on, I don't like this. So let me try to change that. Instead of asking myself, well, what am I realistically expecting from that individual's behavior, their thought pattern? Do I accept the fact that that person is this way, or am I trying to change something about that person? And it left me really frustrated, and it left me having bad relationships at times. And it could be workplace relationships, romantic relationships, or just healthy friendships that last a long time. Because if you notice, the friends that you have the longest, you've probably accepted certain things about them. And maybe the expectation that you have of them is a little bit different than you have of other people. Sometimes we place these really high expectations on, say, like strangers or the way that they interact with us, or maybe we place really high expectations of our loved ones instead of really asking ourselves what's the truth. And so being truthful and being effective sometimes are the same, but sometimes they're a little bit different. Let me explain what I mean. I've come to the realization and have come to an understanding years ago that there are certain things that maybe the way that women process or the way that they think that is maybe different than the way that I think or the way that I would process. And that no amount of explanation or no amount of lecturing or no amount of try to understand me is going to change that thought process. I've known my wife for just under 10 years now, and I love the fact that she approaches things differently than I approach things. And on some areas, like two circles that cross each other, there's some things that we think in a similar way, but the majority of items, I'll approach it one way and she'll approach it one way. And instead of trying to have her change her approach to my way, I simply adjusted I adjusted my expectations so that I didn't expect her to approach it my way. I expect her to approach it her way. Then when she approaches it her way, my disappointment or my frustration or missing each other is less. I want to imagine, I was answering this question. We were near a golf course. And I'm not a golfer, okay, but I like the sport, but I'm not good at golf. But I would imagine, and I've seen on TV several times, the world's top golfers, they will adjust their swing based off of the wind. They will adjust their swing based off of altitude, or maybe it's humidity, or some conditions that they're adjusting it. Maybe it's the length of the grass, or how much water's on the grass, or all these different variables I've probably never even thought about, they adjust. They don't hit the golf ball trying to change the wind. They change the way that they're hitting the golf ball. And so what they're doing in that metaphor is, instead of trying to change the outside factors, they adjust their expectations of what the golf ball is going to do. And the reason these people get paid millions and millions of dollars to hit this little ball towards this hole that's hundreds of yards away is because they're better at adjusting and recalibrating their swing to meet the surrounding variables. Now, I'm not good at golf, but studying human nature, adjusting my expectations based off of the people that are around me and the behavior patterns and the way that they think. And this is based off of where they're from, how they were raised. So when you study a human being, you may see two people that look the same on the outside, but on the inside, you can't see what they look like. But you could find out more information, just like a golfer would find out information about the weather and the altitude and the wind speed and all these things. Is the wind coming from this direction or that direction? You too can study people and say, what is that person's dating history? Is that person closer to their mother or closer to their father? What does that tell me about them? How has that person responded to an adversity before? How were they raised? Were they ever left by themselves, or were they always taken care of? Have they ever been a single parent before, or have they ever, like, all these different questions that will change it would change how a human being behaves. That will change the way they will behave towards you also. And so that's really important. I also thought of another analogy. I saw a show on sniper and shooting, and I'm not good at shooting, and I don't understand that either. But when you watch the calibration that would happen, and changing based off of the target, how far the target is away. Okay, the curvature of the earth, other factors like wind speed and all these formulas that happen to what happens with a bullet when you shoot it. They calibrate. They don't get mad at how far the target is away. They just recalibrate their gun. And so whether it's hitting a golf ball or shooting a target or many other metaphors that we could think of, what's most important is when you deal with people, that we have to also apply the same disciplines. And so we have to recalibrate our expectations. And when I recalibrated my expectations amongst dealing with certain people, because I have people in my life that may be more difficult to deal with than other people. And I'm also that person in other people's life. I will firmly admit that I'm sure that there's other people around me that have to recalibrate their expectations of the way I'm going to behave so that they could be also, that they could receive my behavior better, because ultimately we want to have long-term relationships. We want to have deep-seated roots. We don't want to divide. The devil wants you to be alone. Don't be alone. Make sure that you have relationships with people, but you have to recalibrate what you expect out of them. Some people have higher expectations in certain areas. Some people have lower expectations in certain areas. Like I remember when I would explain to somebody that maybe a single mom has learned to be more protective and has to be more on guard and not lend her trust to other people. My mom was a single mom. I married a single mom. And so I understood this completely, because maybe a female that's never been a single mom can give her trust a little bit easier, or doesn't have to be as protective because she doesn't come from a place of having to protect children on her own. That would completely change it at all. If you're working with somebody in the workplace, if they've worked for the same company for 30 years, and then they come and they do a different industry in your company, you have to give them time to recalibrate, because they've been doing the same thing in the same industry, in the same company for 30 years. Contrast that to somebody who's worked at 5 jobs over 20 years, meaning every 3-4 years they learn something new and they learned a new career and they learn new people, so that may be easier for them to do that. Think about somebody that comes from the military and maybe they've served 20 years in the armed forces and then they come into civilian life, into a corporation. It may take longer to adapt for them because of what they're used to. But also being in the military, they may be more used to adapting more than somebody that has been in the civilian world dealing with the same things. And so I could give you countless examples of these, but if you've ever raised children, or if you've ever been in a relationship, or you've ever led a group of people, at the end of the day, we're trying to make sure that we all become better leaders. And one of the most frustrating things in leadership is trying to change other people. Instead, what we need to do is learn other people. And as we learn their thought patterns, we know that their thought processes change their language. And that their language, they're going to give clues onto how they're thinking. When you listen to people speak, it'll tell you a lot about what they're thinking about, and it will also predict the way they behave. So my formula from going from thoughts to words to actions, if I want to understand how somebody's going to act, okay, I need to start thinking about the way that they're thinking. And if I can't see the way they're thinking until I have to start watching them speak and then watch their actions, then I will start knowing the behavior of the person. And instead of trying to alter their behavior by my actions and words, I need to learn the way that they naturally behave and the way they naturally deal with conflict and the way they naturally deal with adversity, and watch them. Watch to see if they flight and they run away. Watch to see if they freeze and they just stay there. Watch to see if they fight, flight, or freeze. All these different things. Watch how they behave in certain things. Watch to see who listens first and who speaks first. Typically, you'll see that women will listen first. You'll also see that men will try to speak first. And so as you start collecting this data, and we're in a data-driven world, and you start collecting this data, your brain is smart enough to start collecting data. You'll start noticing behavioral patterns. And once you know behavioral patterns, you could then begin to predict the way people are going to respond in certain situations. And then what you can do is recalibrate your swing for that golf ball, or recalibrate that shot for that rifle. And you change the way you expect things out of people based off of the learning that you're doing as a leader. And you know what you'll be called one day? Wise. You'll know what you'll be called one day? A listener. You know what you'll be called one day? Patient. All words I didn't think I would ever be called. You start having people say, hey, you have some wisdom. Hey, you're actually patient. Hey, you actually listen to me. And I could tell you, it came from years of doing it wrong. It came from years of not being patient, not listening, and not having the discipline to pay attention to behavioral patterns, and instead think the world was supposed to conform to me, when in reality, my job is to make a list of my deal breakers, things I will not change and I will not conform to. But then also having a healthy amount of being malleable to situations so that I could adapt and that I can learn from the actions of others, so that I'm frustrated less and I get better performance through others more. I hope that this helps you. And if you want to continue this pathway and becoming a better leader, I encourage you to take that next step. Check out our ebook. We go through 100 different lessons and ask 100 different questions in areas of your life where you may be able to improve as a leader. And you may be doing great in some of these, but it may prompt you in other ways to say, you know what? I need to start studying a little bit more there and improving more there. And if any of this content helped you, go ahead and subscribe, let others know, and pick up that ebook. And I hope that you choose to be a leader for life.